June is Pride Month, and queer artist David Hockney died. His iconic double portrait, Portrait of an Artist Pool with Two Figures, made in 1972, was the subject of one of my very first videos in 2019, and it was like 3 minutes long. So let's take the opportunity to dive deeper into Hockney's queer art. There's a lot to go through. A lot of these artworks will be censored. Did you know I got banned from YouTube for a week for my video on Antifa? Go check it out. Anyway, I'm not risking it this time, so if you want to see this video uncensored, check out patreon.com/thecanvas. Thank you. All right, let's start. We're starting off in 1960. At 22 years old, David Hockney is still at his first year at the Royal College of Art, the RCA, where he notices a split in the students: traditional figurative artists and artists inspired by American abstract expressionists. Hockney gave a go at abstraction but found it barren, so he'd paint highly stylized figurative works. His first works in 1960 were highly influenced by Walt Whitman. Now, because this is a queer overview of Hockney's art, we have to talk about Walt Whitman's own queerness. Whitman was a 19th century American poet and perhaps one of its most influential one. His contemporaries would ask him if he slept with other men, something Whitman always denied, but there's a lot of evidence that he was indeed gay. Another gay writer, Oscar Wilde, who'd go to jail for being gay, met Whitman. He'd even confessed to gay rights activist George Cecil Ives, "I have the kiss of Walt Whitman still on my lips." In any case, it's believed that his terms comradeship and adhesive love were dog whistles for gay love. Hockney painted adhesiveness in 1960. Two figures stand out in the foreground of this composition, a red one with the number 4.8 and an orange one with the number 23.23. This may look innocuous at first, but if you knew David Hockney, you'd know these two figures are doing what the kids call 69ing. See, in 1960, in the UK, homosexuality was banned. It was illegal to have gay sex. That was only decriminalized in 1967, so prior to 1967, if Hockney wanted to depict his love life, his feelings for men, he'd be admitting to committing a crime. He had to use a certain level of abstraction to not get caught. He'd use another dog whistle, or coded language, through the use of numbers. Whitman used numbers to refer to his suspected lovers, so when talking about Peter Doyle, for example, he'd use 16.4, referring to initials and the position of the letters in the alphabet. 4.8 and 23.23 would translate, therefore, to DH and WW, David Hockney and Walt Whitman. Adhesiveness is the first really serious painting I'd done. It is my first painting to begin to have precision. However, there's perhaps a stronger hint at Hockney's queerness in his painting titled Going to Be a Queen for Tonight, in which the term queen closely resembles the then pejorative term queer. The figure of the queen returns in this artwork titled Queen, this one titled Jump, a self-portrait as we see 4.8, Hockney's initials, and slightly in this one titled Oh for a Gentle Lover. We also see it in Dollboy, made between 1960 and 61. The queen here is Dollboy, and though that sounds very queer, it's referencing number 3.18, or CR, or Cliff Richard, a popular singer David Hockney had a crush on. Richard released the song Living Doll in 1960. In one of the many studies for this painting where hearts are included, Hockney writes next to Dollboy, unorthodox love. While other students at the RCA had girl pinups cut out and stuck in their cubicles, Hockney explained, he'd have pictures of Richard. For Living Doll, Richard is referring to some girl, so I changed it to boy. Hockney's obsession for Cliff Richard didn't wane. He painted the most beautiful boy in the world, with D-Boy or Dollboy on the naked man's shoulder. There's also the number 69, but somehow I doubt these are the initials for FI. This might just be 69. The figure 69 reappears in a self-portrait, the fourth love painting, where we can see HOCKNEY'S initials, 4.8. The cha-cha that was danced in the early hours of 24th of March 1961 is a painting that recalls a very specific moment when Peter Crutch, an RCA student HOCKNEY had a crush on, danced the cha-cha for him. 1961 would also be HOCKNEY'S first visit in the United States. He went to New York in July, as we can see in this painting, I'm in the Mood for Love, where he mentions Queens. In New York, he'd go in a few gay bars, and he'd be amazed by how dynamic the city was. While watching television in America, he saw an advertisement for blonde hair dye. This would mark the slim shadification of David Hockney. I'd dye my hair or bleach it, but I'm not that committed to the bit. So you're getting this. You better enjoy. We two boys together clinging, one the other never leaving. Up and down the roads going, north and south excursion making. Power enjoying, elbows stretching, fingers clutching, armed and fearless, eating, drinking, sleeping, loving. Written by Whitman, this poem inspired David Hockney to make this artwork, known for being one of his first overtly open artwork about queer love. This was partly propaganda of something that hadn't been propagandized, according to Hockney. He saw a newspaper headline detailing a hiking accident, 2 boys clinging to cliff all night. Of course, if Hockney saw the word cliff, he'd imagine Cliff Richard. He also saw a reference to the Walt Whitman poem. So he imagined himself clinging to a boy. 4.2 means doll boy. 4.8 is inscribed on the left figure, and 2 numbers on the right figure, 3.18 for Cliff Richard, and a new number, 16.3. 16.3, or PC, is Peter Crutch, the RCA student Hockney had a crush on. On Hockney's mouth is written the word never, showing the impossibility of his love both for Cliff and for Peter, who was heterosexual and had a girlfriend. A bit more confrontationally and subversively, he painted Cleaning Teeth Early Evening 10 p.m. W11, where 2 creatures squirt Colgate toothpaste in each other's mouth while laying in a bed with a Vaseline tube next to them. That's the same year David Hockney graduated from the Royal College of Art, but not without a bang. To graduate from the RCA, a final assignment is to paint a female model from life. What he submitted, however, is this: Life Painting for a Diploma. The title of the painting speaks for itself. This painting is done to satisfy the requirement for his diploma, but does it confrontationally by depicting a male body. He copied the cover of an American Physique magazine, heavily stylized it, and stuck an old drawing of a skeleton next to it. That way, if the RCA criticized the painted figure for not being anatomically correct, the drawn figure shows Hockney's expertise. Hockney traveled both to New York and to Egypt in 1963, but the works I want to present here are 2 domestic scenes: Domestic Scene Notting Hill and Domestic Scene Los Angeles. In Notting Hill, the scene is banal. 2 men are standing in a living room, but the walls and the window are absent. They're alluded to with the strong presence of a red curtain, but you can't see them. Hockney compared this type of way of seeing to an alcoholic only noticing bottles of alcohol in a scene. Here, Hockney presents selected elements, the ones he focuses on, and out of these elements are 2 men, one of which is naked. This domestic scene is one of a gay couple. Keep in mind, gay sex is still a crime in the UK in 1963. This picture isn't illegal, but does push boundaries in a time when the UK police still constantly arrested gay men for having sex. However, the intimacy of a naked man distantly standing behind a clothed one is overshadowed in terms of riskiness by Domestic Scene Los Angeles, where, again, many elements of the composition are omitted, but where the essential stands out. A man is taking a shower while another washes his back. Again, not illegal, but we're on the edge. We're edging. Just as he did for Life Painting for a Diploma, Hockney used images from a magazine, Physique Pictorial, to paint his subjects. There's an intimacy here which doesn't need sensuality to resonate. This is a sweet and tender scene. It doesn't present queerness as solely sexual as it was often presented back then, but also loving, affectionate, and vulnerable. Queerness doesn't just manifest itself in public bathrooms, but also in people's houses, people's living rooms, people's showers. 1964 is a pivotal year in Hockney's career. If the previous year he painted domestic scene Los Angeles without having been to California, this year he moved to Santa Monica. In California, meeting the art world and the bohemian subcultures of West Hollywood, he found it easier to be gay. For example, he'd meet the openly gay couple Christopher Isherwood and Don Bishardi, who he'd later make a double portrait of. He also made Cubist Boy with Colorful Tree, whose queerness, I believe, speaks for itself, and Man in Shower in Beverly Hills, another shower scene, though this time probably drawn from life rather than from magazine covers where there's only one subject instead of two. However, I believe, unlike in Los Angeles, we feel more implicated in Beverly Hills. Hockney places himself as an artist in this composition by adding this plant-like shape in the foreground, making the viewer feel like they're voyeuristically looking at the scene. We aren't presented the scene objectively as we were back when they were made in the UK. Here, we're pulled into them. It feels like we're more conscientiously a part of them. California was particularly important to Hockney's career because of pools. This may sound a bit ridiculous, but that subject would make him quite popular, and he did, at times, as we'll see later, mix in some queer imagery. Well, we didn't have to wait much to see pools being mixed with queer imagery because in 1965, he'd make Swimming Pool, Two Boys in a Pool, Hollywood, or even more evidently, The Swimming Lesson. There's also California, where two men float one next to another. Finally, and I don't want to spend too much time on this one because I'll need to censor it, there's Bob aboard the France. The SS France was a transatlantic boat that would connect the United States and Europe. We can safely assume that this is a drawing of Hockney's travel partner, his bottom covered in pink. This is one of the rare overtly sexualized artworks Hockney would produce. At least, that I know of. I'm sure there's a lot of them in private, but from what I've seen, maybe they're just not public, Who knows? The images of gay men in pools would continue. You have Sunbather and Portrait of Nick Wilder. Nicholas Wilder was a gay art dealer who eventually represented Hockney in California. Unlike the other queer pool paintings, this one isn't suggestive or voyeuristic. Nick is staring right at us. However, 1966 stands out in Hockney's queer art, more specifically for his illustrations from 14 poems from C.P. Cavafy. Constantine Cavafy was a Greek-Egyptian poet who died in 1933. Hockney loved Cavafy's work as it was very openly gay, and he started 1966 by making sketches for a series about Cavafy's poems. These sketches were made in Beirut. For the Americans watching this video, Beirut is in Lebanon. Lebanon is the country that you, the United States of Israel, are currently bombing, invading, and occupying. Anyway, Hockney decided to depict gay men in Lebanon, often naked and in bed. Hockney is 28, he's teaching at UCLA, and he meets a student a decade younger than him, Peter Schlesinger. According to Hockney, this was his best year in California. He painted a bigger splash, which would become perhaps one of his most, if not his most, successful artwork. He'd paint a portrait back in London of the gay artist Patrick Proctor. And perhaps more importantly, he was now in a relationship with Peter Schlesinger. There's this awkward portrait of him, the room Tarzana, where he's not wearing any pants, laying on a perfectly tidy bed. There's also, a lot less awkwardly, Peter getting out of Nick's pool. While this pose and composition would predictably take a female subject, Hockney presents a male subject and subverts the male gaze, replacing it for the gay gaze, or the gaze. Hockney spends much of 1968 working on this approximately 3 meters by 2 meters double portrait of Christopher Isherwood and Dawn Bishardi, who we mentioned earlier. He also worked on another double portrait of a gay couple, the curator Henry Geldzahler and his boyfriend Christopher Scott. This one is, again, a bit awkward. Geldzahler is obviously the main subject of the composition, and Christopher looks rather as if he's going to leave or he's just arriving. That's how I felt the situation was. It's a bit like that. Yes, that's all intended in the picture. I much prefer the lithograph of the two, though they feel disconnected once again. Unrelated to artworks, but very relevant to Hockney's queer life, is his return to the UK. In 1967, gay sex was decriminalized, but arrests and prosecutions against the gay community actually increased. We saw how much Hockney loved his male physique magazines, and when he tried to cross the border with them, the British government confiscated them. Hockney used his contacts, got Norman Reed, director of Tate Gallery, to send a letter to the border agency, got Sir Kenneth Clark's assurance that he'd testify in court to defend Hockney, and eventually, the magazines were returned. Never take Hockney's gay porn away from him. I have some bad news. 1969 is very underwhelming in terms of queer art, which is, I know, super disappointing. He still made this nude etching of Peter Schlesinger. We're skipping to 1972 because the past few years were difficult between Schlesinger and Hockney. This breakup culminated in Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures, perhaps the epitome, to me, of Hockney's queer art. In front of a mountain range, a man swims in a pool while another watches him from the side, fully clothed. It sold for over $90 million in November 2018. Both a double portrait and a pool painting, this epitomizes, in a way, his California-era art. The man on the right looking down is Peter Schlesinger. They had broken up a year before, in 1971, because of a fight. That same year, the idea for the composition came from seeing a combination of two pictures on his studio floor. A man staring at the ground appeared as if he was looking at a man swimming underwater. After several months of working on the painting, Hockney abandoned it, not liking the angle at which he painted the pool. So he took more pictures, as documented in Jack Kazan's 1973 documentary, A Bigger Splash, where both Hockney and Schlesinger recreate their breakup. With these new pictures, working up to 18 hours every day for 2 weeks, he finally finished it on time for an exhibition in New York in 1972. I think Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures reveals the importance of Hockney's work in the development of queer art. Because what I'm interested in isn't the passionate, sometimes graphic art, but the casual, domestic scenes, the somewhat boring double portraits of gay couples, and the longing of an ex-boyfriend. Michel Foucault, in his The History of Sexuality Volume 1, famously says that homosexuality only became a social category in the 19th century as institutions legalized and medicalized it. The sodomite had been a temporary aberration, the homosexual was now a species. In other words, committing sodomy prior to the 19th century, at least in Europe, didn't give you an identity. It was something you did rather than something you are. With the classification of people according to their sexual desires, the homosexual, as a group, became its own thing. This, of course, leads to a lot of persecution, but also allows categorized people to create a community out of this new identity and organize politically around it. It's within this process of identification and political organization that Hockney's art situated itself. Gay culture, personality, and character was shaping itself in an age where gay sex was being decriminalized. Sex in itself wasn't the only characteristic of the gay identity anymore. As Robert Mapplethorpe's pictures show, and I imagine I have to censor those for YouTube again, sexuality still had an important role to play in the depiction of gay culture, but Hockney didn't reduce it to that. Hockney shows domestic scenes, sometimes awkward, sometimes boring, sometimes tender, but always relatable, even if you aren't queer. In Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures, Hockney depicts his ex-lover looking at another man in a pool. Hockney is jealous. He's grieving the presence of someone he loved and who is moving on without him. In that way, many of Hockney's queer paintings, especially the later ones, aren't first and foremost queer, but they're about domesticity, cohabitation, love, loss, and tenderness. The queer categorization comes after, when you learn that these themes are embodied by queer people. However, there's a word for this type of attitude: assimilation. A lot of Hockney fans will defend him on this point, say that his paintings remained radical until the end, but there was a definite shift between his early rebellious youth paintings, which he labeled propaganda, and his later domestic scenes that, if they are propagandistic, are targeted at a heterosexual audience to reassure them, don't worry, gay people are just like you. Assimilation is about smoothly integrating mainstream heteronormative society, meaning a society where heterosexuality is considered the norm. The goal is to get legal equality, be able to get jobs, get married, be able to function within society without changing it radically. This, however, is criticized by more radical liberationist activists who, instead of wanting to integrate hetero society, want to change it. The idea is that if you want liberation, but you don't mind the social imposition of the traditional nuclear family, the 9-to-5 job, and the different social, economic, gendered, racial hierarchies that exist, you're not really for liberation, are you? You just want to place yourself within those hierarchies. Looking through Hockney's paintings, especially the California ones, there's something about them that feel upper middle class, that feel like they belong and appeal to it. We are upper middle class gay men, and we are just like you. We are not a threat to social order and to your privileges. We are just suburbanites participating in leisure activity. I hate suburbanites. You know what gay suburbanites make me think of? Rick and Steve, Rick and Steve.
Rick and Steve, Rick and Steve, happy and gay like you wouldn't believe.
Rick and Steve is a really fun gay show in Canada. They're like gay Legos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it. What do you mean you clicked on a video about queer art and you don't know Rick and Steve? I think David Hockney advocated to normalize gayness, the same way billionaire fascist Peter Thiel or Republican Caitlyn Jenner do. And that's not a bad thing in itself, but it certainly isn't fucking liberation, is it? Should I say that in British? And that's not a bad thing in itself, is it? Is it, love? But it certainly isn't fucking liberation. Was that British? David Hockney British? David Cockney? All right, as with each movement for liberation, they can be incorporated within existing hierarchies in a way which emboldens these systems and weakens their enemies. Queer liberation activists aren't happy with gay fascist billionaires such as Peter Thiel or Dave Rubin or Caitlyn Jenner. I'm not saying Hockney is a fascist billionaire. I don't think he was evil, but the queerness of his art might have been limited to representation alone. And did he represent the queer community or a specific privileged segment of it? David Hockney is dead, and as we look back at his art, I think we should reflect at his contributions to queer art and about what we expect from our artists as a community. I'm not criticizing Hockney for not doing enough. I love his work. If a queer artist doesn't want to make confrontational and asserting art, that's completely fine. I just think we should, as we reflect on an artist's work and celebrate it, be mindful of the extent at which an artist contributed to the fight for queer liberation and not necessarily content ourselves with representation. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to, I'll thank the patrons right away. Roman Brandel, X-Towns, Chrissy Chris, Bone Meal, Sting, and Chad. I got them all. Well, that's not all the patrons. That's the top tier patrons, the one who pay the most, and I shout them out. So if you want me to shout you out, or if you want to be a part of these patrons next to me, check out patreon.com/canvas. You can watch the video uncensored, but you've already watched the video, so like, unless you really, really liked it, you can go watch it again in an uncensored version. Yeah. First video since the Antifa video came back. Hey, celebration! The video on Antifa is back. Go check it out. Yeah, YouTube didn't like it, as you may assume. Go check it out. Go like it. Go comment. Go engage with it. You know, go just watching it is good for the algorithm for that video, because I had to. Well, it was taken down one time. I got a 1 week ban from it, and then now it's back. Help me out with my struggle against YouTube by going to check it out. It's 3 hours. I know it's super long, but yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I worked so hard on it. I hope it's good. Anyway, this video, happy Pride, I guess. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to know what you think about David Hockney. Oh, look at that, branded socks. Let me know what you think of about David Hockney. Is it just pure representation without actually any tooth to it, any fangs to it? Is it defanged art that just does representation and is not enough? Should we expect more? Should we just be happy that it exists? Let me know what you think about David Hockney's art. I definitely think, from a personal perspective, I much prefer his earlier work than his later work, and I think in French we call it embourgeoisement. It feels like embourgeoisement. It feels like you have the energy and the having it rough as a student, or like being a bit more confrontational, and then you get older, you get a career, you get money, you get contacts, and you become embourgeoisé. You become a bourgeois. And it feels like that's what happened with David Hockney. But I would like to know what you think in the comments, as always. Yeah, next video is on Yves Klein, where I'm gonna dress up as a Frenchman. So check out for that. Look out for that video. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.